Hi, and welcome to another installment of If It's in the Mind, It Can Be Managed, the Mind Management Mentors podcast. And we have got totally international for today's guest. The power of the internet and the fact that we can talk to anybody worldwide is still amazing. And I love the fact that we can connect with people all over the world. And I'm a big believer in abundance and culture sharing a space. Then when we do something very similar, there'll be something that I learn and take away from this. And that's what today is all about, is the craft of coaching and what is the difference between coaching and therapy. And there's only one person I could ask about that, and that is you, my absolute fabulous new friend.
Yay.
We have a program in the UK called the Blind Date, which is tell us what your name, where you're from, and what you do.
Okay. Is that my cue?
That is your cue, Jen,
All
straight in.
right. Okay, here we go. Well, the first one's easy. Thank you for starting off with a no-brainer. My name is Jen Slaski. As Cuddy mentioned, I live in the States. I grew up in Canton, Ohio. As you can see, I'm here now with the snow in the background. And though I've spent the last 25 to 30 years or so living different places around the world, and I'm recently back home. And what I do is a bit of a hybrid. I am a licensed therapist and I'm also a coach. And a lot of that comes from I've spent most of my career in the corporate world, leading teams and working on things like brand and culture. And so my journey to becoming this collage, if you will, of a professional just comes from the life journey and leaning into where the energy led me and what felt right and true to who I am and what inspires me and that I'm passionate about. So,
I love that, and I love what we're going to talk about today because it's actually a really important question, and it's a question that gets asked a lot: is what's the difference between a therapist and a coach? And bearing in mind you were a therapy first, and then you went into coaching, I think you are going to be able to answer that question.
yeah, and actually it was the opposite. Like I was a coach first and then got my degree in counseling. Um,
Right.
the easiest way, Cuddy, that I try to differentiate it for folks is generally where your focus is. I think that there's people that if you feel goal oriented, like there is something ahead and it feels this sense of acute where you want to be and that can feel a little more tangible and you're ready to lean in and you just might not know how to get there. You might not know exactly what it is, but directionally you can feel yourself being pulled in a new direction and you need help. And help could be anything from getting clarity on the details of what that is. It could be somebody to help give you scaffolding for the details of it, the accountability, the enthusiasm around it. That to me is more coaching. Very much like when you think about a team on the field, they generally know they're moving in a direction to get the goal, to get the basket, to get the whatever it is, and the coach is helping them with the plays make progress towards that. When we talk about therapy, um, there is some overlap,
There
but
is, yeah.
therapy to me is more so wanting to take a pause and do some self-reflection and get some personal insight to understand why life doesn't feel quite the way one wants it to feel. Or you're trying to figure out what's standing between you and a new season. So there's a lot more um, that's focused and readily receptive to looking inward, to taking a look back in some instances to
Yeah.
understand our operating system and what emotionally, internally may be happening so that that can inform it. That happens in coaching as well to a certain degree. That's why there's overlap, but it really is the entry point of what's your mindset and your heart set now in terms of what it is you want?
Yes, I like the way that you explained it there. That because I know that I still don't like the term life coach. I don't know if by the way, I worked in America for a long time, but that's genuinely why I call myself a mind management coach.
Hmm.
Because I was
Hmm.
like, no, I can help people manage their minds and help. reset their nervous system after trauma, and then we start moving people forward. But I do believe that there's got to be, which is why I think therapy and coaching is such a, and you said counseling, because in the UK, counseling can be different to therapy, and therapy is different to coaching.
Yeah. Okay.
And I've often found that a therapist often just listens to your problems, and I might be wrong. I might be wrong. Listens to the problems and lets you understand why those problems have happened without actually giving you an outcome for you to move forward to what do you want? Why can't you achieve it on your own? And let's find out if that's what a mind management coach does. I think that's the best way I can explain it is what's the outcome you can't achieve on your own? Let's find out why, resolve, and move
Mm-hmm.
instead of
Hmm.
staying with it and sitting with it and talking about it and talking about it and talking about it and talking about
Right.
it and
Which can
talking
make
about
those
it.
neural pathways just get deeper
Get
and
deeper.
harder to
Yes.
get out of,
Yes.
right? Yep.
Which is pointless, but needed for some people. I get it. I get
Hmm.
it. And
Hmm.
that's why I thought it was when I got the introduction from um our mutual friend, if you like, I was like, that is definitely a conversation that is really cool to have because even when people work with coaches, there is sometimes, well, I can't go and get it even though, and we need to find out the why and
Hmm.
the meaning that we've created out of something that's going to stop us moving forward within the
Hmm.
subconscious mind. And I think that's a really powerful part of it, Jen. So what I always like to do, by the way, for everyone that's watching the podcast, me and Jen met for 5 minutes before the podcast and said, like, we're diving in. We are diving in.
We're
This is
in.
what
We
we're
are in
doing.
it. We have dove already. Here we go.
So everybody has a story or a tipping point for them to want to become a life coach or to become a counselor/therapist. So Jen, I want to take you way back. Was there a tipping point in Jen's life that created a sense of purpose and experience that was like, this is now why I want to do this?
I've been asked this question before, and admittedly, I've struggled because it's always been in me, and I don't think I knew necessarily what this was called. But like, if you look back to even like in the States every year in school, at least when I was growing up, there would be yearbooks, and yearbooks would have photos from across the year, and there'd be people voting for like who's the funniest or who's the quirkiest or the nerdiest, whatever it is. Um, and as far back as like third grade or fourth grade, if I look at the yearbooks, people would sign them and they'd just say little things. And there was always this theme where people would say, oh, like, thank you for being a good listener, or thank you for listening to me, or thank you for something, just around things where I was like, what in fourth grade? How inspiring can somebody in the fourth grade be? So even me, I was like, wow, like that was just kind of in me. And I can remember also in fourth grade, this whole convention of which now people will probably be like, what? But it was call waiting. So at home, there would be a landline and there's one number. Well, around that time, a lot of my friends got what's called call waiting. So you're on the phone, and if somebody else calls, you hear a beep and you would click it, and then you could answer that call. Well, we did not have that. And I was on the phone all day, every day after school, talking to friends. And my birthday rolled around, and my friends came together and went to my dad and lobbied and said, we would like to get call waiting for your family so that we can get through to Jen. And my dad listened very patiently, but he was just like, no. And it was just like this frustrating thing. Like, Dad, everybody's got call waiting. Like, I need to be able to talk to my friends. And my dad's like, why? Why can't you just talk to one? I was like, well, they've got problems and they want to talk to me. And it was just this funny thing. But I think like I remember back then, just when I was talking to my friends, it just felt like, oh, like not in a self-aggrandizing way, like they need me, but that was just kind of um how I was wired back then. And I always really enjoyed listening to people and helping them. And I think that's where it came from. And so I think I've always naturally done that for myself as well and for people and just nerded out about this notion that we can make our lives better. It's like if you can kind of see what it is that you want or that's not working, and you can come up with a plan and surround yourself with the right types of people and energy, that you can change things for the better. And so I think that I've always lived my life like that. And I would say that um, this is kind of a long answer about like how that gestalt was always in me. But I would say is I ended up going to school and having a corporate career and just doing a lot of like fun, creative things and leading teams. But to me, it was always still about the humans. And what I would love most is figuring out how to make a corporate culture better or a team work better in synergy or somebody on my team more inspired by their work. Um, and so I naturally started doing this in startups in different places. But the tipping point for me to really consider becoming a therapist, getting my degree as a clinical therapist, was my father got very sick, who I was very close to my father. And a lot of this coaching that's in me probably comes from him. He was working class, very blue collar, was in the army, served, and so very practical, down to earth, self-made man. And so I'm sure I get a lot of that from my dad. Um, but he was diagnosed with ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. And through that journey and spending so much time with him and my mom and helping to care for him, um, I ended up interfacing with a lot of his caregivers. And just, I think throughout that time, I can remember my dad continually saying, like, it's time for you to go do more and help more people. And you'll do it in your way in a different way. But instead of staying just in the corporate world, it's time for you to take the next step. And I remember he's like people are out there waiting. The world is out there waiting. And it's a very dad thing to say, like, like he's like, go get him, Jen, and you're going to make a difference. But it was very inspiring for me at that point to leave the corporate world full time and to take this step that I didn't know where it would lead,
Mm.
but with the seed in my heart that like I do want to go help people beyond what I'm doing now. And my dad had this unique thing where he's like, you are a healer, but you're going to go do it in a different way that's unique to you. And so that's when I finally took the leap to leave the corporate world full time and start doing my own thing and trying to find my path um, in this way that is um, a lot more multifaceted, I think, than can make sense to a lot of people. Most people like I'm a therapist or they're they're focused, they're one thing. And for me, like I said, it's kind of this hybrid.
Yeah. I I I love the hybrid. I I'm thinking now, there's sometimes I do because we have the modalities and the skills to be able to help so many different things. And in the world of coaching and therapy, like pick a niche, pick a niche, pick a niche. And it is always that thing of like, well, no, but I have this technique that helps with that. I have this technique that helps with that. I have this technique. And when you fuse them all together, so because that's how mind management started for me was
Yeah.
NLP, life coaching, CBT, and I moved into psychosensory therapy, such as havening, brain spotting,
Yeah.
and EMDR. And
Yeah.
I fused them
Yeah.
into mind management so that whoever sat there, and I've just started working with a new business, and I'm like, I can work with your leaders to your staff and your employees because I've got 13 years experience in corporate America because I used to work for Royal Caribbean. And then a lot of my teenagers
Yeah.
who were self-harming are no longer self-harming because we've used different techniques with them and things like that. So it is a powerful calling. It genuinely is a powerful calling, Jen. And when you talk about it, Jen, you talk about it with such love and admiration, especially for your dad. I don't even know your dad, but I feel like he was a chap I would have had a pint with down at the
Oh, he would have loved to have had a pint with you, Cuddy.
So now, what that when you were talking about it, I'm like, this brings up a great, valuable point for if somebody's thinking they have a greater calling, you're going to have the exact steps for somebody to follow. Because I always want people to get value from the podcast. So
Hmm.
you've got somebody who's tuning in, going, "Well, do I want to be a coach or do I want to be a therapist? And what's the plan I should follow to leave?" my corporate job because that's scary. Going from paid, yes, answering to somebody else. Who was it you worked for in the corporate world? Am I allowed to ask?
Sure. Yeah, it was a company down in Austin, Texas, tech startup, or it was when I started called Spiceworks, and it's basically the one of the biggest global communities for IT professionals. They have free tools and a free community, and so I was their first marketer and was there for a decade and got to be involved in all aspects of building the brand, and the culture and just all the things that I love the most.
Perfect. So somebody's going to watch this podcast. They're going to say, right, I really want to be a life coach. I really want to get into therapy. And but that is a big jump leave. And I know we all say, you've got to feel uncomfortable for us to grow and things like that. But going from that to coaching and therapy is a big jump.
Hmm.
What's 3 steps, Jen? Three
Hmm.
steps that, because I believe everybody, learning to become a life coach or becoming a coach, the training's the easiest part. It's how do you
Hmm.
build that
Yeah.
business? How do you build that income? And that can be a powerful and hard way for people to navigate. So, Jen, what's 3 things that you would say to any of our listeners saying, right, I want to leave my corporate job? What's the 3 things they need to have in place?
Yeah, well, I would say first of all, the first thing is the realization that you should not leave right now. Which which is probably not popular. Everybody wants the 2 hour movie version of this where it's like, and then you're driving off into the sunset and you said bugger off or whatever it is that like you would say if you're like, right? And then the credits roll and there's an inspirational movie and you like to think, oh, and it's going to be fine. Do not do that. Like that's actually not how it
I
works.
agree. I totally
So
agree.
that's the first, I don't know if that's negative one step before the
No,
first.
it's constructive.
Right, right. It's
Take
just
mortgage first.
realistic.
Make sure
And
your
I'm an
mortgage is
optimist, and
covered.
I'm an optimist. So I'm not trying to
Yes,
rain on parades. I'm really trying to be practical about this. Because I think that if you have this in you generally, and you have a likelihood you're going to be successful, it's something you've been doing. It's like how I talked about, and I went on far too long, but where, in fourth grade, I can look back and I didn't know what I was doing. And that was just in me. Now, I'm not saying that you have to have had this present in your life that early on, but there's something right now in your life that hopefully you are already doing that makes you believe you would enjoy leaning into this as more of a vocation or a career. And so, my best advice is to first and foremost look at where you're at right now and what it is about coaching or therapy that appeals to you, how you're doing it, and how you can do more of it. So, if you are in a workplace environment at all, whether or not you're a leader, lean into and look for opportunities where you can use these skills or use this passion and start there by actually doing it in your everyday life. I think that's a super, super important first step.
I think I was more practical when anybody comes to me and says, "Oh, how did you start and become a coach and things like that?" Because I know the advertisement and the marketing of coaching is 10K a month, 5K a month, live your own life, travel the world. I hate that. That's that absolutely a proper Scottish term for you, Jen, that you'll walk away with. That boils my pish. That genuinely does.
Never heard that one.
So that's a Scottish term for when I see these advertisements of become a life coach, travel the world, and I'm like, why would I pay someone to travel the world to coach me? I'm just like, that just makes no sense. But that's a judgment on my part. I've said that on many a podcast before.
Yeah.
But somebody's saying, right, I've now just passed my coaching degree, coaching certification. I always say to them, make sure I never left my job straight away.
Right.
I made sure that I had a revenue coming in that meant I was covered for 6 months to eight
Yes.
months of my
Yes.
mortgage and life covered before
Yes.
I could go and say, right now I'm full time.
Yes.
What did Jen do?
Well, I think that that's part of it. And so I want to say, like, when I say just stay put as a step, it's not to say be stagnant, but it's because a couple of things. And again, that's a nuance. If you said somebody already got their coaching certification, like that, if that's the case, the reason I say for right now, stay put and keep doing it, it's because that's where you're getting your income. And this is also where you've probably been for a little bit. You've probably got some trust built up. And frankly, what I have found for some people that think they want to be a coach, they don't realize that sometimes there's opportunities to do some version of that in your current role that
Correct.
sometimes can fulfill you, right? For right
Yeah.
now. It's not to say you won't get there, but so I always think for somebody they might be surprised, especially if they've been successful in the environment where they're at and they have some respect or they've earned some stripes, if they go to their manager or someone and say, look, here's what I'm really passionate about and I'm thinking of, I would love any other opportunities to be able to do more of this. And if you know what that might be, every environment's different, but there is an opportunity to start doing it there. And why I say that is because then you do actually have real world experience in a real world environment that helps build your confidence and it also helps build your resume. So that then when you go out and somebody's like, oh, why should I trust you as a coach beyond the fact that you're really enthusiastic? You're able to say with like, full authenticity, because I have already been doing this in an environment, a very organic environment. So, and then in addition to what Cuddy said, you also, you still then have your income. And at the same time, that's where I think you can then start to do little projects, clients on the side. You let your friends and family know, hey, I'm starting to do this as a practice. And you start to get referrals that way so that you are practicing and you're building up your skills. You're learning what it looks like to have a client and a practice, but you're doing it from a place of stability, not complete panic because you just took this huge leap and you have no income coming in. And then what happens is the white noise and the stress
Yeah.
of that clouds your ability to be
Yeah.
a really great guide or coach for anyone. Even if you can fake it energetically, like that's going to come across and you end up making decisions and taking on clients or doing things that you normally wouldn't because you're desperate.
I'm just thinking now, I got 1 year's worth of revenue in that would cover my bills for a year. I
Hmm?
remember, yes, I'm remembering it now. And I actually had a year. So I could leave the part-time job that I was doing because I had a year of my part-time job money stored with the coaching. And I'm like, right now I can focus on it. So that's step one. Make sure you've got the plan, stay where you are, get the confidence, and then grow. Perfect. I love that. Step number two, Jen, what would you do?
So, step number two, again, this is going to be really not sexy stuff that somebody that's ready to
We
go
love it.
coach is
We
going
love
to
the
hear.
non-sexy
But
stuff.
this is related to step number one, and it's if you are not someone who is financially inclined relative to projections, relative to income, finances, which generally like a lot of therapists and coach aren't wired to be
100%.
someone that loves that element. Ask people around you that you respect and trust financially if they work with a financial advisor or a financial planner, or I know at different places have different like things and titles they call it, but somebody that loves that, that you can sit down with and that will help you understand what does it cost to be you? Like, because you need to understand what it is you need to make, not want to make, like need to make, because
I
what
get it.
Cuddy was
Yeah.
talking about, like
Yeah.
know what it is you have to have on a monthly basis, on an annual basis, or you even would have to have in savings so that you can step out with some relative comfort. There's going to be a little bit of discomfort, of course, because it's something new. But I think having the facts and having that information and knowing, hey, if you don't want to change anything about your life, what would that cost? What is it that you would need to have in savings for how long in order to quit your job to go do this? And if you do, what's the leeway? I just think having that practical insight and forecast, it gives you this scaffolding and this information that allows you to make better decisions. So again, you're moving forward from this place um, of knowledge and general stability because you know when you're going to run out of money or you know what you need. And then you can set really like informed goals.
Yeah.
Whereas otherwise you're scrambling. And again, I'm an optimist, but I think there's a difference between optimism and idealism. I think
I
optimism
would say I'm
has
an optimistic
realism.
realist.
Yeah, there you go. Optimism has realism involved, but it's
Yes.
like, yeah,
Oh, I
yeah,
love that. I might coin that.
you
I'm an
do it.
optimistic realist. I love that. Right. Step three, Jen. Step three.
Step three, I think, is going, like we talked about, I think it's going out and yes, like looking in your current world, because I think here's where people can get really paralyzed. Um, try to run out there and be traveling the world and having X amount of followers and whatnot before you're even necessarily coaching in the craft. And so I think that a lot of times people get really stuck and paralyzed by this whole, how am I supposed to market and promote myself, as opposed to start in your current ecosystem. Like I talked before about letting your family and friends and trusted ones know, here's what I'm doing. If you know someone I could help, start there, but also looking for those opportunities in your everyday life to start chopping wood, as they say. And I talked about doing that in your current job where you can be making money
Yes.
and also leaning into
Sharpen
it.
the axe.
Sharpen the axe. Yeah, like there's places you
Sharpen the
can
tools.
go volunteer to get your name out there, right? Start building genuine relationships by offering this
Oh,
gift you
yeah.
have and this desire. And that's why keeping your day job and keeping some income coming in is helpful so that you can go build those genuine relationships as you're building your skills and your craft. And then just karmically, good things happen then. Whereas if you just start with this big marketing presence, before you even have necessarily any opportunities to be in the craft and to develop relationships and to develop your style. Again, that energetically comes out. And so again, I'm really about like, ecosystem, organic, local. It's not everybody's cup of tea. There's a lot of people that want to get out there and start big and
Yeah.
build the brand and let that read. And financially, you may feel that's required, but that's why, again, I start more from the ground up.
Organics. I do a lot of networking. So for anyone, and I always share this. There was one thing that I remembered from Grant Cardone. He says, whatever you want to charge, whatever the price is you charge for your service, make sure you stand in a room that can afford that price. There's no point standing in a room that
Mm,
can't afford that price. And
yeah,
by the
it's a
way,
great advice.
I am not an expensive coach in any way whatsoever. I'm very fair with my pricing to make sure that we get the results that we can for the people that I work with and things like that. And I just find that networking still for me is the most powerful part of face to face. I still prefer face to face than social media.
Yeah. Yes.
This to
Same.
me is an absolute golden opportunity more than me watching something on social media and saying, "Oh, work with me because I'm internationally renowned coach Jen Slaski from Ohio." That would have no interest to me. But this real connection, still to me, is a powerful way for that organic reach.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, I think the thing is I hate the word networking. Is what it is, and everybody knows. But because like all of us have been in that room where everybody goes to networking and all they're doing is showing up and trying to say their elevator pitch, here's what I do and here's what I want, right? But if nobody's really listening and there to help each other, it just doesn't work because nobody's actually there to listen to what it is you need to do, and it's very transactional. But I think in these things, if you can find environments where you can go and yes, you let people know what it is that you do, there's also an opportunity there, like I said, for you in some instances to find causes or people where you can volunteer some of your time. And I'm not saying that from the standpoint of, to make this a community servicing because I know that eventually coaches need to make money, but I think that when you're out in those in-person environments, people get a sense for your energy, and then you also get a sense, like Cuddy was talking about, of what those people need or want and who your niche is going to be because you're not going to want to coach everyone. You're not going to resonate with everyone. You're not going to be able to help everyone. And so when you're out in those networking environments and having genuine conversations about who you are and what you do, and you're listening to other people and asking them, like, what do you know about coaching? Have you ever like hired a coach? Do you know people that work with them? What's your impression? You're going to start to really tune into who those people are and whether or not they would be a fit for you. Just generally, like their philosophy, how their heart set is, financially, in terms of what you want to charge. Like, I think that's a great point, Cuddy, in terms of knowing the room you're in. Can they afford you? Or do they even have an interest in coaching?
It's true. It's not always about whether they can afford you, but it's whether they actually. No, you're absolutely right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very true. Yeah, no, very true. So, Jen, this has been absolutely fantastic, but I think we're only just scratching the surface. Jen, you have got some absolute gems to share. Don't pause there, Jen.
I'm
because that was.
waiting. I thought you were gonna like lead me to like
I'm
which
going
one
to
in
lead you to the
particular
next
you
part.
wanted to
No,
hear
I'm going to
about.
lead you there. I noticed there was a long pause there. I'm like, Jen doesn't know where we're going. We obviously don't because we only talked for 5 minutes. So Jen, all the way in Ohio, in not Cleveland, but in Ohio, as a coach, what's some of? We'll start with the positives, and then we'll add a constructive.
Mhm.
So Jen, what's some of the biggest successes or the biggest wins that your clients have had working with you
Hmm.
as a
You
coach?
know, I this is the one that to me was the most unexpected, if you will. Um, I was connected, and I've found that my clients that I end up helping the most tend to be referrals
Yeah,
based on somebody that worked with me before and
yeah.
knows who I am and also knows that person and says, I think you two should meet, right? So that's the first thing I'll say. And so there was a woman who had worked for me previously. I was her manager back in the day. She had moved on to work for this new startup, and she introduced me to her CEO and said, "We're in a place where we're growing, and I just think it would be great for you two to meet. There's a variety of different things that Jen, I think that my CEO would love to talk to you about." So we met, and to be honest, I was a little curious about if I was going to be able to help this CEO because I've not been a CEO, and
Mm,
where the business was, that is not my strong suit to work with the CEO to grow revenues. And I am always very comfortable meeting somebody and being the first to say, I'm not the person that can help you there, but let me introduce you to a few other people that I think who might,
mm,
and then I send them on their way and whatnot. Um, but in particular with this CEO, it turned out that she wanted to get out of the business of being a CEO. Like the success had taken on a life of its own, and she wasn't able to be there as much as she wanted to for her family and be living the life at home and the balance that she'd had before. And it was a really unexpected turn that the conversation took, but we really got clear back to her values and back to what is it right now in this season of your life your values are, and looking at how her life was or was not aligned with that. And long story short, I did end up connecting her to people that are far better at what they do than I would in terms of a CFO I had known that had helped companies get bought and acquired before, and a CEO that was able to help her where she was get to the next level of growth to ultimately have the company get bought so that she could get back to living the life that it was she wanted. And to me, that was a huge success because it shows the integration of things in terms of your life as a human
yeah.
and your life as a professional and as a business owner. But I think that at the core, it gets back to you as a human saying, what is it that I value most? What doesn't feel aligned with that now? And what are the steps I need to take to get more aligned to that? And I think the reason I love that as a success is because I pulled in other resources who know certain things,
Mm.
many things better than I do. It wasn't just about me having all the answers. It was about helping her tune into and build an ecosystem of people to support her in moving forward towards the life that she wanted to be living.
Love it. That's how power that I get how powerful life coaching is. The only thing when I went through the life coaching thing, the only thing that still is a bugbear, but it's probably a really useful tool, is the wheel of life. I'm
Oh,
just
I
like,
love the Wheel of Life.
I knew you were going to say that.
So great.
I knew you were going to say you love the Wheel of Life. I think I have a distaste for the Wheel of Life from something that happened somewhere else, to be fair. But no, the Wheel of Life, I used it a couple of times with a couple of clients, and they were saying, oh no, I am happy with this. No, I am happy with this. And it is actually they're talking about it. It's a powerful tool. Like, oh, actually, no, I don't want to work on that. I don't want to work on that. Oh, I just want to work on that. Boom, now we've got a focus. That's actually not too bad at all. I do remember that. But the Wheel of Life at one point,
Why?
genuinely, I don't know.
Here's why, regardless of what you call it. And for those of you, you probably follow Cuddy, so you already know what this is, or you don't, you stay away from it or are allergic to it. The reason I like it is I think that as coaches, we are wired a certain way that is highly reflective
Yeah.
on ourselves in life. So it seems almost redundant. And what I have been most shocked at is time and again, the number of people that are so busy in life and life is living them. And they finally can get to the place of coaching or working with a therapist, whatever their entry point is. And I'm amazed that they have never really thought about it. So to me, when I see the reaction people have, like, whoa, I can't believe it. That was so powerful. I'm reminded again and again how people are so busy and doing the best they can that they
Yeah.
haven't even had or taken time to take that pause, take that breath, and ask, how am I feeling about these different areas? And realizing that they all matter and they balance each other out in different seasons. And so that's why I love it because I
Yeah, it's
think that it
good.
shows if you're lagging in one area or it needs some TLC, the importance of if there are other areas that at least are good, it can help like the buoyancy of it can help. And
Yes.
I think that's a super helpful lesson. So
Yeah.
that's why I love it. It's just as a general gut check for
I
people.
love that. I love
But
that. Now, you've told me one of the wins because I think we have to let coaches know that you're not always going to be the successful, get results
yeah.
every time. What's one story you want to share with? I just didn't get the result, whether it was a me thing or the client thing, but talk us through that.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I mean, I have plenty of them.
I love it. The honesty, great.
Well, and I think this gets back to interestingly, and I always go back to the most valuable tool, no pun intended, is really getting clear on your values at this part in your season and what matters most. And I have had through word of mouth referrals come to me. For instance, there's this lawyer as a client, fairly high up in his firm, and he came to me, and his goal, as far as coaching goes, was to get to the next level as far as income. And what was challenging for me about this is because there were so many other areas in his life that were not going well, and he only wanted to focus on success and accomplishment. And it was really hard for me to be able to pretend that there weren't these other areas of his life that were clearly affecting him. And he was over-indexing, in my opinion, on income and accomplishment as a way to escape from these other areas. And I couldn't get there, right? Like it's like, and I wasn't able as a coach. I think there are some coaches that can be like, cool, if that's what you want as a client, boom, let's focus in and we're going to get you there. It was just too misaligned with me and what I have seen to be true in terms of individuals feeling a sense of well-being and fulfillment. And so it wasn't a fit. And he was frustrated because I couldn't stay focused on just that. And so
Mm.
we did end up parting ways, and it was actually a lovely, fine parting because we were able to see why at this moment in time we weren't a fit, and I was able to refer him to somebody else. But that's usually what I'd say, like my failures. And so to the point that I try to let people know pretty upfront, if this is what you're looking for, I'm not the coach for you. Like I'm not the person that's here to get you from making this much to making this much and able to tune out um, the other areas. So, which is important. These are important if you're looking for a coach to be
Yeah.
really clear on and know their style and ask those questions. And I love this coach, like Cuddy, this question, like ask coaches this question.
Yeah.
And if they don't have any failures, do not work with them. Like anybody and anybody
True.
that's like, I didn't have a failure, or hey, I don't believe in failure. Failure is just a lesson. Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, this is true. However, I think it's important for a coach to have, yes, a sense of confidence and competence, and also the humility and a
Yes.
self-awareness around where they're not the best and who might
Yeah.
be better than them.
Absolutely. I love
Back
that.
to values, I guess.
I
Again,
know
value.
it does come back to values because it's funny because I say I don't work with grief. I've not technically had that much
Mm,
grief, so I don't feel comfortable I work, and do you know what? I did work with a lady who had grief, so it's funny because I'm thinking, yeah, way back in the day, and I do remember because I always work on an outcome and said, look, as long as you get the outcome, would you be happy? Yes, we'll get to the outcome, and I didn't get to the outcome with her in the allotted time we were working,
yeah.
but I remember her saying, Do you know what, Cuddy? I genuinely don't mind because I've enjoyed every conversation I've had with you, and
Yeah.
that's been enough. Which is the therapeutic side, isn't it?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
the therapy side. Whereas I want to be goal oriented or outcome focused for somebody. But for that person in that moment, I think that was the humility of, mind management coaching can be you might have to play the therapist in that session, you might have to play the coach in that session, you might have to play the counselor, or you might just have to be able to hold space in that session.
Yeah. And
And
I
that's what
think
they're
I'm
after.
I'm glad you bring this up, Cuddy, because what I will say is for most people that are great coaches, that are oriented as coaches, grief is not something that they prefer to work with or
Mm,
necessarily are the best fit for. And I had to learn this. I've had a lot. I've had like 31 flavors of grief, all the different
mm,
varieties, for better or for worse. It just is. And I do work with it, but not in a coaching capacity and therapy,
yeah.
because like what you said, you like coaching is about keeping moving the ball forward, progress,
Mhm.
progress. Grief is a delicate thing because there's not
Yeah.
a timeline and you
No.
can't push somebody to just get over it. It can actually be really harmful
Yeah.
to do that. And so you tune into that notion of holding space. And there are times when, especially grief, that's required. But you made a point, and this is a little complicated, but I think that it's important for an individual to be clear on what it is they want. And if for whatever reason, whether with a coach or a therapist, things just don't feel like they're moving fast enough for you, or you're not feeling like you're seeing progress,
Mm,
hope you have the relationship with your coach that you can bring that up. Because, for instance, if you're working with a therapist and you're like, hey, I just need to be moving past this grief, that's a good conversation and a worthy one to have, right? If you're talking to a coach, you may find out that they're able to say, like, oh, yeah, like maybe you should be working with a therapist, right? But
mm.
also, I think that it's important, whoever you're working with, that you feel comfortable with what your goal is and how
Resonate.
you're working towards it together. And I think that there are things like when you have depression, when you have severe anxiety, when you have a lot of grief, it's important that the person you're working with, you feel like can hold space for that and can give you, my bias, can give you practical tools to help you manage that, right?
I
To
love how
not
you said
just sit in
practical.
it, but help you manage it. And most coaches can be like, okay, sometimes can want to speed you through it, like notice that, and you want them giving you tools and you want to be able to ask for tools, but at the same time, pay attention to that pace. And if it just doesn't feel right, just bring it up with whoever it is you're working with. And the ideal coach or therapist is going to be able to hear that feedback and have that conversation with you and collaboratively come up, explain to you why they're doing what they're doing or not doing, but also collaboratively come up with a move forward plan that feels aligned with your goals and your spirit, if that makes sense.
I love it, Jen. That was literally that was gold right there. That was. I don't think this is where we thought the conversation was going to go, which is even better, to be fair, because I like flow. I love flow. I love
Mhm.
organic, and I love
Love
going where
organic.
where the conversation goes. I have a lot of people when they're coming on the podcast ask me, "Oh, have you got the questions lined up?" I'm like, "Nah, I actually
I
don't.
love it. It's so much more
I know."
authentic and genuine that way, right? It's just back to flow and organic. It's
So, what's authenticity for you? We'll wrap up the podcast with what is authenticity for Jen? Because it's different for everybody. And I think authenticity, I like congruence. I think congruency is a powerful word, and I think it's more subtle than authenticity. Because I think my bias, I think people use authenticity as an excuse for carrying on being an arsehole.
yeah, yeah.
So, what's authenticity for you?
Yeah, we've talked a lot about values,
Hmm.
right? And again, I think it can seem like a buzzword, which can kind of seem annoying. And it's just like, but to me, really, if you just say values, like what matters most to you in life, and being clear on this season what that is, and making choices that feel in alignment with that. And when you step out and you do that and are moving forward in that way, and communicating about that with people in that way. And so I think that there's an authentic way of living where you're not making choices to what we call in the States. I don't know if it's a phrase that translates, but keeping up with the Joneses, where it's like, oh, well, they're making that much. So for me to feel like I'm successful. I need to be making that much, or I need to have that house, right? It's like, so authenticity, I think, starts as an internal truth with self and reckoning. It says, what really matters to me? And is that how I'm making decisions? Is that how I'm showing up with my choices, first and foremost? And then I think it's when you do show up with people, I think it's I do think it requires courage. There's some people that have an easier time showing up and saying what they believe, even if it's not popular. But I think that there is this courage element because when you are you, it might not be the thing that makes you feel the greatest. I think it's being able to say, here's what I'm not good at, or here's what I've failed, or like apologize when you messed up, not make excuses. And I do think it's really important, Cuddy, what you say about that whole not using authenticity as this wolf in sheep's clothing for just behaving badly or unkindly or saying, well, I tell the truth. It's like, I think that a mature authenticity can balance thinking and feeling and can really take into account that other people's feelings do matter. And there's this sign my nephews had in their playroom. It says, before you act, think. And I think it was an acronym for you think, and before you say something, you ask, is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? And is it
Be
kind?
kind. Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
and I think it's, I
Nice.
hope that that translates globally, but I
Yeah, it
actually
really
think
does.
like if you are being authentic, it also, if you're mature, you're being a mature adult in your
Mm.
authenticity, you're going to run things through that filter. And some people naturally do it, but if you don't, you're aware enough of why that matters to invest the effort to get better at that.
Yeah. This has been enlightening.
So fun.
Jen, this has been so much fun. Thank you very much for sharing some time with us.
Oh, Cuddy, thanks for having me.
Not a problem at all, Jen. I think that there's some absolute gold in there, and I think when we talk about authenticity and those first steps for coaches, I think there has to be. I love the word optimistic, an optimist
Optimistic
realist, an
realist.
optimistic realist keeps us grounded, and I'm not always grounded sometimes. While I'm sat talking to you, I'm reflecting about the past 3 months behind me, and I'm like, yeah, you were flying a bit too. I've always used my wife as a great analogy. She's I'm the kite, and she's the weight that stops me flying away. She doesn't pull me back.
Right.
She stops me flying away.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the powerful thing about understanding that sometimes we're not getting pulled back, we're getting just able to stay where we are flying without going up Icarus too high to the stars and to the sky. And I think this was
Well, I love that constellation, even that, like the
yeah,
constellation of people you have around you. It's authenticity. You're
yeah,
able to say, "Hey, sometimes I'm this or I'm not
yeah,
this." There's vulnerability and courage in that, right? And you're like, "Okay, and so
yeah,
how I offset that or deal with that is I have other people in my life. You don't have to be all things to all people. As a coach, you don't have to be all things to all people or good at all things, but being authentic enough to recognize your strengths, your weaknesses, and then
yeah.
figure out how you offset those, I think is huge. And so I'm not surprised being here why you come like praise that preceded you through our mutual friend because you're that even that lab you're so authentic, Kite, and your energy and enthusiasm translates. You are a kite, it's like Mary
I
Poppins. I feel
yeah.
like I was just in the Mary Poppins
Let's
movie.
go
Go
fly
fly a kite
up
up
to the
to
high. I
the
love it. Jen, thank you so much. Is there anything you want to share before we wrap up and say goodbye?
Um, what is it that I want to say? No, I don't. Everybody, I think that if you're following this, call Cuddy. He was a cruise. He was a cruise director before, and I feel like that translates into what you're doing. You are now helping people be the cruise director of their own life. And what more would you want? Julie McCoy was the first thing I wanted to be when I grew up, and so I don't know if Love Boat was ever a thing over
Was
there,
she the
but
cruise director on the
she
Love
was
Boat?
a cruise director, so maybe that's why we're kindred spirits, Cuddy,
I
you
love
and
it.
I. You actually got to be that, and
Love it.
I just got to dream. So great to
Fantastic.
spend time with you. Thanks for having me. This was
That's
fun.
been an absolute pleasure. As always, big love from 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝐿. Thank you very much to everybody that watches the podcast. They tune in, they subscribe, they like, they share, they watch, they comment. The more comments, the more likes, the more shares, the more high-class guests we can get on to help coaches move from where they are and where they need to be by giving them that valuable pinpoint information. And I think that was some gold today. And it's not always about chase the 10K, chase the 5K, go and do this. Literally making sure your bills have got covered for 6 months to 8 months is a massive takeaway, because you've got to be an optimistic realist. And on that, I'll see you in the next episode of the Mind Management Mentors podcast. Big love from 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝐿. Thank you very much to Jen, and we'll see you on the next episode.